But another benefit of having the motor in the handpiece, right, is that it reduces the amount of components necessary to run the system. So existing systems today, require different motors with different handpieces and those couplings to bring it all together. Right. So with the ELAN 4, it always has the correct motor in each handpiece. So there's no confusion around trying to match up what goes with what. That makes it much easier, not only on our sales team, right, but on our customer at the end of the day.
Clock in, scrub up, and join us behind the red line. You're listening to First Case, a perioperative podcast bringing you exciting interviews, engaging discussions, and innovative solutions that are changing the way patients receive surgical care. Each episode, we talk to frontline staff, perioperative leadership, and nursing entrepreneurs from across the country as they share their stories, experience, and expertise on the industry we love. From the back table to the boardroom, from wheels in to wheels out, we tackle the real-life issues affecting the OR. Whether you're tuning in for surgical service education or inspiration, we're glad you're here. And now it's time to roll back and start the first case.
On this Vendor Spotlight, we are going to be speaking with Jason Moonen, Product Manager with Aesculap, and we're going to be introducing the ELAN 4 power system. We're going to be talking about a great deal of innovation and innovation with efficiencies in mind, and not just for one department, but for the operating room, for sterile processing. And that's why, Melanie, you and I are here together, because we are going to be speaking both to the Beyond Clean and First Case audiences in today's episode, because the design of the ELAN 4 really has everybody that's involved in surgical services in mind with some of the improvements that they've made.
I think that's great. Thinking about how an instrument not only performs in the operating room, but thinking about how efficient and easy it is to clean an instrument, to make sure that it's sterile, to make sure that it's ready to go. I think that looks at an instrument's life through the entire time it runs through surgical services, and it doesn't just focus on one aspect, but all of it, because we need sterile instruments. We need certainty in clean instruments, and to know that they're going to perform properly. And so I really like that they looked at both aspects, sterile processing and OR, when they made this power system.
All right, well, don't go anywhere. Jason's about to tell us all about it. We're going to be right back.
A 17 Studios production, you're listening to First Case.
Joining us now is Jason Moonen, Product Manager with Aesculap. We're going to be talking about the ELAN 4, Jason, and this is a podcast that's going to be going out not only to our audience on First Case, Melanie Perry is joining me for this interview, but also for Beyond Clean and our sterile processing audience, because there are some really excellent features with the ELAN 4 that apply to cleaning and disassembly and being able to flush. So we're going to dive into all of that today in a very engaging discussion around innovation. So thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. I appreciate the opportunity.
So Jason, let's start by just learning a little bit more about Jason Moonen and your role with Aesculap. If you can just tell us about yourself.
From an Aesculap standpoint, I'm a new product manager for the ELAN 4. Been with the company for a few months now, but prior to this, I've had a lot of experience around launching new product. For the past 10 years, I've focused on developing new products for not only the acute, but the non-acute care market. And I do that by working with our customers, internal stakeholders, subject matter experts, key opinion leaders, as well as doing my own research to really do, three things. Number one, where there are gaps in our portfolio. Number two, what are our customer pain points and what do they need most? And then number three, right, how we're going to solve for them at the end of the day. So in this role, it's really something I enjoy, because you get a full 360 view, from innovation to market, and you're able to see all the hard work and the due diligence come to fruition, by launching new products that will ultimately improve patient outcomes.
Well, we're going to talk about this, but one of the things I love about the development strategy, and especially the ELAN 4, is really going to all of the internal stakeholders and end users in the hospital to get their feedback about where certain areas of design and innovation would be most impactful. And I think we're going to hear, a good amount of that story today. And I know even from just doing a Beyond the Tour episode, which is available on the Beyond Clean YouTube channel, that you really have, kind of two different ways that you approach SPD and OR. And with sterile processing, it's about operating with greater precision. But then in the OR, it's about envisioning the extraordinary. And so when we have this conversation around innovation today, we're definitely going to be envisioning the extraordinary and also talking about how we can make some operational improvements in sterile processing when it comes to reprocessing these devices. Why don't you talk a little bit not only about Aesculap, but really the ELAN 4 as well, as we start the discussion around the development of the ELAN 4 and the improvements that have been made?
Yeah, the ELAN 4 is a power system, or a portfolio of products intended for high-speed cutting, sawing, and drilling of the bone in the fields of spine, ENT, neuro, and maxillofacial surgery. Aesculap has been in the international market for over 100 years, but more of a new entrant here in the US. But the ELAN 4 is the first power system that's not only submersible for manual cleaning, but allows you the ability to flush the internal lumens, so that you can force out all that bioburden from inside.
Yeah, sometimes the design of medical devices can make it difficult for cleaning. And then, Melanie, you know what it's like when all of a sudden something kind of appears in the middle of a surgery that you weren't expecting. So talk about operational efficiencies, right? That right there is a pretty big inefficiency with a lot of downstream impacts to the surgical schedule, to the patient, everything else. And so we actually had a chance, Jason, to see the ELAN 4 when we went to HSPA, which is one of the certifying bodies for sterile processing professionals last year. We really got a full tour of the ELAN 4. And there are a lot of things we're going to talk about today that are very important and nice features with it. But at the same time, I want to talk about this risk for infection, and I want to put it into maybe context here. Do you have any stats that illustrate the risks that we're talking about when we don't have a device such as a drill that is not really able to be submerged and cleaned effectively and flushed?
Yeah. So, as we mentioned, right, the ELAN 4, was not only designed for, improving those patient outcomes, but really improving the efficiencies and the cleaning efficacy in SPD. So there's over 1.7 million hospital-acquired infections every year. So 22% of those are caused by surgical site infections, and 6% of those have a death rate, right? So pretty significant. And then in 2020, there was a study done by ECRI, and of the top 10 health hazard, number 3 was the infection risk associated with sterile processing errors. The goal of the new design was not only to help, enhance the surgeon's precision and performance, but also, to meet those increasingly strict demands in reprocessing so that we can help prevent those HIAs and create a new standard of how to clean power systems.
So, that's definitely music to sterile processing's ear. And Melanie, I want to talk about some of the things that come up commonly in the operating room when it does come to power equipment. Obviously, you just talked about, some of the cleaning concerns with equipment that might not be able to be cleaned, and then what happens. But what are some of the other things, especially related to power equipment? We've got all these connections, we've got cords. What's that like, especially for, I know the OR listeners know, and that'll resonate, but what about sterile processing as we kind of educate them on, what that's like during the procedure?
Well, I guess a very short story is my own experience. The first time I was scrubbed in and had to try to put a handpiece together, and I could not figure it out. I had to get somebody else to come in and help me because I have the main body of the handpiece and I had the cord. I could figure out how those went together. That's pretty self-explanatory. But then there's this other piece that slides over the handpiece that turns it on, and I couldn't get it to work. And then getting the blade on the end of it, of course, it's also always under pressure because somebody's breathing down your neck to make sure that it comes together, and I couldn't do it. So it's just that feeling of pressure and intensity when you want this stuff to go together. And I, for the life of me, probably because I was flustered, but could not figure the stupid thing out. So when we were at HSPA last year and we were looking at the ELAN 4, and it was easy. Like I could look at it and I could figure out how it went together because everything was self-explanatory and it just connected. And there was color coded so that it would match and it would go in, and there was no second guessing. And if I was fumbling because somebody was breathing down my neck, I know that I could very quickly just pop things together. But that is my own experience with what I used to have, what I've done before, and then seeing what they've created. I was like, oh, this is a godsend. I can do this.
So, Jason, let's talk about the ELAN 4 and some of the things that have come together in the design. Obviously, what Melanie just described that we saw firsthand was just the way that it is color-coded to help everybody understand how to assemble it. But there's a lot of other features. Can you talk about what makes the ELAN 4 so unique?
What Melanie is alluding to is our golden marking system, which makes our system very easy from a plug and play standpoint. So wherever you see the gold color, right, it indicates, where a nurse should, release or plug in that burr. And it just makes it extremely easy, right? Whether it be the setup or in use, and just really helps minimize any challenges or issues when using the ELAN 4. But in addition to, right, the golden marked elements that make it a plug and play, there's a lot of other features, right, that ELAN 4 brings to the table that helps differentiate it from the competition. A few of those unique features are the direct drive motor. There's universal burrs. And there's also, as we mentioned, the ability to submerge and flush that system. As we're thinking about the direct drive motor, most systems integrate their motor into the cable, right? However, ELAN 4, the motor is built into the handpiece itself. When a motor is located in the cable, there's going to be a need for additional couplings to attach different handpieces to the motor, as well as an angled gear that's necessary to transmit that power, from the motor through the coupling, through the gears, ultimately to the burr or the blade. What the ELAN 4 does is removes the need for those couplings and those angled gears by putting that motor in the handpiece. So the power goes straight to the tool itself. And by eliminating those couplings and the angled gear, you reduce the amount of friction and the heat that's generated when using the system, which then ultimately helps reduce the wear and tear and helps improve the stability, when operating it. One way to think about it is like driving your car up a prolonged steep incline or hill. The steep grade or the angle, makes your car work harder the longer you're going up that hill, which ultimately increases the risk of your engine overheating. What we did was we took the angle out of the equation, right? That helps keep that ELAN 4 running at a high speed while preventing that risk of overheating.
That's a really big deal. And I know on a lot of equipment, there's something called a duty cycle, which basically says, how long you can run the motor, and then you need to take a break, how long you run it again. And then at some point, it needs to take a longer break. And Melanie, you and I have talked about this in the past. And, a lot of people in the OR aren't really aware of the duty cycle, or that you can overwork power equipment and have it overheat. And, Jason, to that point, having something that really reduces that wear and tear and the cost of maintenance, and then also help prevent total failure in the middle of a procedure is obviously key.
That's right.
Yeah. We have very frequently had handpieces that quit working, and all of a sudden they're not working anymore. And we don't know why, but we figure, we've overheated it. We've used it for too long. But like, you use this word duty cycle, and that until we did this prep call, I had no idea what that term actually meant or what we were talking about, but how it feeds into why our equipment stops working. Or, we've used it straight for however many minutes long and it's gotten too hot and now it's stopped. But we're very familiar with the fact that it stops, but not necessarily why it would stop. So then having equipment that manages that is also something that makes it more efficient.
Another benefit of having the motor in the handpiece, right, is that it reduces the amount of components necessary to run the system. So existing systems today, require different motors with different handpieces and those couplings to bring it all together. With the ELAN 4, it always has the correct motor in each handpiece, so there's no confusion around trying to match up what goes with what.
So then on my back table, I've always got the same thing, right? I don't have to worry about multiple different pieces to be put together like a puzzle. I just have one thing, and then all I'm really worrying about then is whether I'm using a burr or a blade or something like that.
The idea is to try to make it as simple as possible.
It's also great for sterile processing because less components to reprocess means less work in SPD when the instruments come down for reprocessing. And so when we talk about operating with greater precision and greater efficiencies in sterile processing, less volume in terms of instruments is a good thing for, helping keep the uptime and the turnaround times optimal.
It's not only the efficiency of getting it turned over faster, but think about the certainty of your sets being complete, because you don't have multiple pieces that you're trying to track down to make sure your set's complete. It's there, it's done, and it's complete. And I think you might have your different hand pieces in your set, but you don't have a bunch of pieces that are going along with those hand pieces that you're also trying to track down, which does make it, I think, a quicker, more guaranteed way to make sure your sets are put together and you can get them back on the shelf without having to go hunting.
That's right. And then to kind of build on that idea, right, another main benefit of the ELAN 4 is the universal burr. So one burr can be used for all the different hand pieces, and there's no need, right, to open up extra burrs. And this will ultimately result in, less inventory for the hospital, less capital spent, less clutter on the sterile field, and it simplifies the OR tech's job.
Real quick for myself, when you say pieces, Melanie, you're talking about attachments that go on the drill to perform different functions?
Well, okay, so in my experience with the other hand pieces that I've used before, you have the hand piece, but then you have a handle that slides over the hand piece that you have to use to push to make it, like it powers it and turns it on, and things have to twist and go in place. And it's almost like you're putting the hand piece completely together on the back table before you use it. That's what I've used before.
Yeah, I really hear that, Melanie. Sometimes there could be a lot of components to the hand piece itself or multiple hand pieces to perform different functions. And so, Jason, you're describing this 2-in-1 with sort of some universal attachments. So I can see what a significant reduction that is. And even at Beyond Clean, our chief medical officer, Dr. Peter Nickel, did a study and just talked about how much time sterile processing spends reprocessing different instruments that go unused in a case. And that can sometimes be a number of those attachments that then still have to be cleaned when they come down. So definitely hearing loud and clear how much more efficient it is. And even for you, Melanie, how much more organized the back table would be, not having all those various components to organize and make sure you know that you're utilizing the right one. So Jason, you can kind of tell I'm playing the sterile processing expert, and Melanie is speaking directly for the end users that are working in the operating room. But from a reprocessing standpoint, what else, might sterile processing folks want to know that would just, again, help improve the cleaning and sterilization of the ELAN 4?
So the ability to, confidently clean and reprocess the ELAN 4 is a main differentiator. But it's the only system that can be mechanically washed through a hose connection to your washer, in which the internal flushing can be done mechanically, with all your washers from all the different manufacturers. This provides an effective method of internal cleaning versus leveraging a pipe cleaner. Everyone has heard of, the controversy of using Q-tips, because they're known to push wax further into the ear canal rather than being an effective method of removal. So similarly, there were previously no high-speed drills that could be flushed internally. Therefore, facilities relied on pushing pipe cleaners into the drill shafts and pulling it back out just like you would use a Q-tip. ELAN 4 addresses this issue by designing a product, that's able to be flush and pushes out all that bioburden rather than just pushing it further into the device.
Yeah, and what I love about mechanical elements of cleaning, like you're talking about with the washers, is that cycle is consistent and repeatable. So when you're talking about having manual processes of cleaning, like you mentioned with a pipe cleaner, you're going to have a degree of variability. So when all of a sudden something happens and maybe we do find bioburden in the device, the process improvement is often going to be training, education, enhanced, sort of inspection, key pointers for that, versus when you're utilizing a mechanical process. If there's an issue, you know exactly where to look because you've got a very consistent cleaning methodology that's behind it. And I think that really helps managers in sterile processing kind of ensure that there's a sound process. But even what you're saying, like it's essentially a flush through instead of a flush in. And so that also is, obviously a huge benefit. Now let's talk about the operating room and, some additional benefits that we haven't talked about. Obviously, Melanie, you covered, the gold color marking, and Jason provided some more detail. That was something that stood out to you that just really helps put everything together, get it ready for use and be ready on time for a case. But the other thing that we saw was a wireless foot pedal. And I remember, Melanie, when we were looking at it, you lit right up when we saw that.
I hate cords. Nobody in the OR likes cords. And we actually had a conversation going the other day about things that in the OR that just drive you nuts. And like a huge one is cords. Nobody likes them. So having a cordless foot pedal and then one that can be completely clean, everything can it can be washed off. It's done. You don't have to worry about it being gross and gunky later. That's pretty freaking awesome. And really just being able to get rid of one less cord in the OR is gold. So while it's really amazing that we don't have an extra cord, which is, I'll sing its praises forever, not having another cord across the floor. What all does that foot pedal do?
So the wireless foot pedal, right, allows you to control the motor speed as well as allow you to switch to reverse and controls the irrigation. So it does all three of those things in that foot pedal while allowing you the ability, to either wipe it down to disinfect it, or you can either submerge it, right, for a deep clean.
That was what I thought was really cool, was that you could just submerge the thing to clean it and you didn't have to try to worry about, anything going wrong with the foot pedal if you submerged it. But that really stuck out to me. Once again, also that it was cordless. Loved that.
So let's focus on the surgeon a little bit. I know we've talked a lot about sterile processing and what it's like to be an operating room nurse or a surgical tech that's going to be working with, the ELAN 4, but what kind of feedback have you gotten from surgeons, and, what design elements did you put in just based on surgeons' experience, maybe, current state before the ELAN 4 was released?
Yeah, once again, that integrated motor, that direct drive philosophy really enables a new ergonomic experience, right? The motor now lies in the surgeon's hands, making that handpiece, perfectly balanced, right? There's no unnecessary overhang of the motor and the cable behind the hand, causing some instability, right? It's very stable and creates a lot less strain on the hand, making it very comfortable and ergonomic and easy to work with.
And doesn't it also, like the angled and straight are just all in one, right? And so the surgeons don't have to worry about switching from an angled handpiece to a straight handpiece?
That's right. We've designed it in a manner so you do kind of have a two-in-one handpiece, right? Combining both the straight and angled handpiece into one. So once again, reducing the amount of spend, inventory, and products on that sterile table, just making it much easier to use at the end of the day.
Excellent. Well, this has been a phenomenal story of innovation. And, Jason, I want to thank you for coming on the show. And I think Melanie is this will have already aired after AORN, but I think Melanie's going to get another look here coming up at AORN. And then, of course, we'll both be at HSPA and catch up with you all at the booth there. But I want to just promote for a moment the education that's available on Aesculap's website for you all. You have a number of accredited courses that provide continuing education credits, whether it's for registered nurses or surgical techs, as well as sterile processing professionals. And you've got a free program that's approved through Fiedler. So want to commend just the educational effort that Aesculap really puts out there for the industry. And we're going to have some bonus content. So if you want to learn more about the ELAN 4, just go ahead and download the smartphone app for iPhone or Android. And that's, if you're a First Case listener, download the First Case app. If you're a Beyond Clean listener, download Beyond Cleans. Click on this episode. There's a gift box and you'll be able to review all of the information on the ELAN 4. And you can find Aesculap on LinkedIn. Go to their website, aesculapusa.com. And if you are interested in education, when you get to the homepage, click on the Academy, or you can go directly to www.educate.beyondclean.net/Aesculap. And you can certainly contact your local representative if you want to learn more. All right, Jason. Well, this has been a really great conversation. We love learning about new innovations, and especially ones that don't innovate in a silo. And what I mean by that is there are lots of people that are involved in surgical services that play a part into a successful surgery. And so as you looked to innovate and bring new design and features to the market, you thought about more than just one department. You didn't just think about the surgeon. You didn't just think about the surgical tech or the nurse. You also thought about sterile processing. How do we make something that works better for everybody involved in the surgical services environment? So just want to thank you for coming on and sharing some information about the ELAN 4, and want to wish you continued luck as you bring this to market.
Yeah, thank you, Justin and Melanie. I really appreciate it. Once again, the opportunity to talk about the ELAN 4, and look forward to seeing you guys soon.
All right, that was Jason Moonen, product manager with Aesculap, talking about the newly released ELAN 4 power system, and it's the only one that you can flush internally from the proximal to the distal end, and that really helps with the efficacy of cleaning and removing bioburden because, Melanie, as we said at the very beginning, nothing worse than finding bioburden in the middle of a procedure. And, sometimes it's out of sterile processing's hands. It could be just related to device design that may not have had cleaning in mind, but it can really cause a lot of conflict between sterile processing and the operating room as well, because as you know, it puts you and your team in the operating room in a precarious position. So designing instruments with cleaning in mind can really help OR and SPD work together better as well.
He talked about, use the analogy of the Q-tip and then thinking about other power systems being used with a pipe cleaner. It's not that sterile processing isn't cleaning those handpieces, but with that pipe cleaner, it's not always getting all that out, and you don't know what's left behind or what's packed up in there. And then you get into the OR and you use the device and things just sprinkle out of it because they're stuck up there. So having a handpiece that can be fully flushed, that you know for certain is clean before it ever even gets put in the set and sterilized, that's just a great peace of mind. So I really liked his analogy to think about how it gets packed in there if you're not flushing it all the way.
Yeah, and the fact that you can leverage mechanical washers to also have a real repeatable process, and then finally, less components, less attachments, really is a big impact because it's more efficient for setup and easy assembly in the operating room, but it's less instruments for sterile processing to be cleaning and sterilizing. And I really like what you said, Melanie, about making sure that it's easy to know that you have everything that you need for that case.
Yeah, such peace of mind. It's a winner.
All right. Well, I mentioned we have bonus content for this episode. So download the smartphone app for First Case or Beyond Clean, depending on which podcast you listen to. Maybe you're listening to both, and we would absolutely love that as well. When you download the app, you can then click on this episode. There's a gift box icon within the episode. You'll be able to view the PDF document, get additional information. And I do want to remind everyone that Aesculap has education programs that are designed to be a resource and readily available to hospital staff. Free programs through Fiedler and continuing education credits. You can find Aesculap on LinkedIn or go to their website, aesculapusa.com. That's spelled AESCULAP USA.com. You can click on the Academy if you want to learn more about education, or go to www.educate.beyondclean.net/Aesculap. And certainly you can reach out to your local Aesculap representative as well to get more info. That's going to do it for this vendor spotlight, but we love getting your feedback. If you enjoyed this episode or there's something that you've learned on another episode, we want to hear from you. You can send us an email to info@firstcasemedia.com or info@beyondclean.net. And you can find us on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook. If you want to reach out directly to Melanie or myself, we'd love to make a connection and get a message on social media. Even better, comment on this post on LinkedIn or Facebook with your feedback. If there's questions that you have, etc., we'd love to engage with you there. And on behalf of Melanie and myself, thank you for listening to this vendor spotlight on Beyond Clean and First Case.